There are those certain shows that over the years end up being kind of overrated for one reason or another. There's a reputation about them, the reputation grows, and it just is what it is. But then on the flip side, there are those shows that I think end up being underrated and in some cases criminally underrated, at least from my perspective. And a show that kind of fits into that category for me is Survivor Series 1994. I always like going back and watching this show. I always have a lot of fun watching this show. Even though one of the matches I thought was totally ridiculous and went from just being comedy to being just stupid, I really like this show. Three big matches that all delivered in a big, huge way. You know, a time where the WWF, even if the talents weren't the best, and even if the creative magic wasn't there and the business wasn't doing all that well, you're in the period of time frame where Vince has to clean up the act, you know, the federal steroid trial, what have you. But, man, this show was pretty good. It really, really was, and I think it's criminally underrated. You know, when it comes to 1994, most people talk about WrestleMania 10, and understandably so. I mean, that was a really good WrestleMania. That's a show that felt like a WrestleMania. But I think Survivor Series 94 is one of those shows I go back and watch and say, hey, that was a good show. That felt like how a Survivor Series should feel. You only had 5 matches. All the matches had plenty of time, had the appropriate amount of time for what they needed. You had stories that had played out either for a long period of time that were kind of culminated and brought to a wrap here, or you had stories that were advanced here and were set up to go to the next level heading into the next WrestleMania. And I thought it was really good. It's a good show. Like, you look at the very beginning and you look at this bad guys versus Teamsters match, and you know, it's kind of interesting here because you've got the WWF clearly getting Diesel ready. They want Diesel to be that next guy. He's big, he's tall, he's one of the few muscle-bound guys in a way that they have in the company. You know, they want him to be that next white meat babyface in a way. They want him to be that next guy. He's got the semi-cartoonish gimmick. You know, they need a big giant like him at the top. And what I like about it is you go back and watch this and you see how they used to do this type of stuff. You know, you've got Diesel eliminating several people, and he is clearly shining, and he is clearly the guy that is the focus. And you've still got him tied to Shawn Michaels, and you need to do something to really split up him and Shawn Michaels and send them on their way towards WrestleMania 11, which is what they do here. You know, Diesel is dominating. Shawn Michaels is insisting that another member of the Clique, Razor Ramon, be held up by Diesel so Shawn Michaels can super kick him. Of course, Razor Ramon ducks. Shawn Michaels kicks at Diesel. You know, they go at it, and everybody else is trying to hold them back. As a result, Razor Ramon is the sole survivor, and bam, now you're off to the races. Shawn can throw his little girl fit. They say he's not going to be Diesel's tag partner anymore. They're vacating the belt, and you can drive right off, and you're on the path to their match at WrestleMania 11. Good stuff. Really good opener to the show. The match was good. You've got a spotlighting of a guy that's going to be a star for you, and you're setting up a storyline for that following WrestleMania. You know, when you look at Survivor Series matches and what they should accomplish, this accomplished all of that and more. So, tremendously well done. One match that I always thought was really stupid was the Royal Family versus Clowns R Us. I mean, all revolves around Jerry Lawler and Doink. You know, Doink was cool. Doink was fun. Although I always thought Doink was better as a heel. With that said, I never understood why they got rid of Doink so early in this match. I never understood why they just had to have Lawler's team go over here. It was just stupid. I mean, Lawler's team members are sleazy, queasy, and cheesy. And, you know, this match in so many ways feels like the WWF of 1994-95. It truly does. When you look at how it was set up, when you look at the names of the characters involved, the way this match was booked, the way this match was mapped out, the way this match played out, this feels like 1994, 1995 WWF, and obviously not in a good way. This was dumb, and this was trash. What wasn't trash, though, obviously, was the WWF Championship match, a submission match between Mr. Bob Backlund and Bret Hart. And this is still, spinning off of the great feud of 1994 that was Bret versus Owen, that Cain versus Abel sibling rivalry type thing. And, this match was really cool in a way, too, because you're talking about Mr. Bob Backlund, somebody who had been the WWF champion for years. He's gone for a decade. He comes back, and now he's a heel. And now he's kind of that crazy off-the-wall. Basically, Mr. Bob Backlund's character in the mid-90s is who Mr. Bob Backlund is in real life, pretty much. And that made it so great and so awesome. The guy that sits there and says, I'm not signing an autograph for you unless you can name all the U.S. presidents forwards and backwards. That type of awesome, crazy, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Mr. Bob Backlund. That's the Mr. Bob Backlund that the people love and demand more of, damn it. But here's Mr. Bob Backlund versus Bret Hart. Title match. How cool is it that these two guys could go out there and have that great type of technical wrestling match that you would expect out of these two guys? How cool is it that you can incorporate Owen into this feud and the family as well? What makes this match go is not just Bret. It's not just Mr. Bob Backlund. And in fact, I don't even think they're what makes this match go the most, or maybe even at all. What really makes this match work, and to me, what really helps this match stand the test of time 20 years later, is Owen Hart. This was one of Owen Hart's finest hours, and he didn't even wrestle in this match. This was Owen Hart, the performer. This was Owen Hart, kind of a genius. I mean, he was just absolutely genius in the way that he was appealing to his mom to throw in the towel, and he's begging him and he's pleading with him. He's like, please, Mom, he can't take it anymore. As Mr. Bob Backlund has that cross-faced chicken wing locked in on Bret Hart for like 7 or 8 minutes, and Owen's just pleading and begging and begging and pleading for his mom to throw in the towel. And then they finally throw in the towel, and you see the great master plan of Owen Hart. He's like Daniel Bryan, like, yes, yes, yes. And the great thing about this, too, is British Bulldogs out there as well. And Helen Hart has to step basically over British Bulldog, her son-in-law, like he isn't shit. I love this fucking match. This match is so much fun to go back and watch. And you could see, I think, in a way where Owen did make this, because the kind of return match that Mr. Bob Backlund and Bret Hart had at WrestleMania 11 was everything that this match wasn't in so many ways, in a negative sense. Where this match at Survivor Series 94 was awesome to me, their match at WrestleMania 11, frankly, is doo-doo. Complete, total doo-doo. The elements were different, the chemistry was off, everything about it, the feel of it was just different, but this right here, incredible stuff. I love going back and watching this match. One of my favorite Survivor Series matches of all time. And again, the funny thing is, the reason it's one of my favorite Survivor Series matches of all time has almost nothing to do with the fact that Mr. Bob Backlund was involved in it. And it has nothing to do with the fact that Bret Hart was the champion who did the honors to a Mr. Bob Backlund. How cool is that? It was, to me, that Owen Hart stole the show. When people want to know why you were such a fan of Owen Hart, I look at Survivor Series 1994 as a perfect example of that. His whole year of 94. I kicked your leg out from under your leg, beating him at WrestleMania 10, and so on and so forth. But this, to me, was the crown jewel of Owen Hart in 1994. Then you had the 5-on-5 other Survivor Series match, $1 Million Team. It was going against Guts and Glory, and that's whatever it was. I don't even care to talk about. And then we get to the awesomeness that was the main event. Taker versus Yoko in the casket match. Now, it's kind of interesting. Here's a pay-per-view, another major pay-per-view, another Survivor Series, where Bret's the champion, and he's, in this case, not main eventing the show. He did in 92. He didn't here in 94 when he was an established top guy in the company. I always found that kind of interesting, that they decided that Yoko versus Taker in their casket match was more important. But frankly, it probably was. I always just look at this from a managerial standpoint who was involved all in this match. You've got Paul Bearer, you've got Mr. Fuji, you've got Yokozuna's American spokesperson, James E. Cornette. I mean, just incredible. Yoko was so awesome that they had to have fucking 2 managers for him. But obviously, that's not why this match is a classic. That's not why this match is awesome. There's only one reason and one reason for that. And I emphasize again, any pay-per-view that involves Chuck Norris roundhouse kicking the fuck out of that Memphis mid-card piece of crap Jeff Jarrett automatically goes into my all-time favorites category. I mean, it wasn't even like Chuck Norris sit there and windmill whiffed on him. I mean, he made full contact. He made Jeff Jarrett look like the overrated Memphis mid-card piece of shit that he is, has been, and always fucking will be. Here's Jeff Jarrett running down. Oh, look at me. I'm the Memphis mid-card piece of crap. I'm doing better than Ric Flair. I'm doing better than Jackie Fargo. And wham! Chuck Norris bitch kicked his ass. He said, I'm Walker, Texas Ranger, bitch. How about some rawhide boot up your chin? Fucking incredible. So, I love this show. I really, really do. You've got the building up of Diesel into a future star, some spotlighting for Razor Ramon, the split off of Shawn Michaels and Diesel. You've got the great match between Mr. Bob Backlund and Bret Hart for the WWF Championship, where Mr. Bob Backlund wins the belt back after not having it for 10 plus years. You've got the genius that is Owen Hart and his performance throughout this entire match. And then you've got Taker versus Yoko in a casket match, where Chuck Norris is a special guest enforcer and he roundhouse kicks the fuck out of Jeff Jarrett. If you think that I was going to shit on this pay-per-view, then you're a fucking moron. I love Survivor Series 1994. One of my favorite Survivor Series of all time, period.